Hello and welcome to Bored and Confused, where I review shows based on two criteria. One, was I bored? Two, was I confused? Today's show is Newborn, written by Ella Hickson, directed by Ian Rickson, and playing at Audible's Minetta Lane Theater here in New York City as part of the Audible and Together initiative, a theatrical partnership created by Hugh Jackman and Sonia Friedman. So let's get into it. But before I do, if you're enjoying the channel and you want to help spread the love of theater far and wide, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does make a difference, and I appreciate every single one of you who helps me out. So what did I know about Newborn going in? Honestly, nothing. I knew Hugh Jackman was one of the three actors involved, and I had already seen these other two productions in the season, Sexual Misconduct of the Middle Classes and What Happened Was, both also directed by Ian Rickson. So I had a pretty good sense of what to expect stylistically. I knew the space isn't dramatically transformed for these productions. The focus is really on the acting, and the production uses what feels like found objects for costumes and set. There's nothing flashy, nothing showy, and I've really come to appreciate Ian Rickson's direction. Everything I've seen him do is workmanlike in the best sense. He's not trying to steal the spotlight. He's doing exactly what these pieces need, which is getting out of the way of the actors and letting them do their job. A little background on Newborn and on playwright Ella Hickson. Hickson is a British playwright born in 1985 who has become one of the more exciting voices in contemporary theater. She holds a master's in creative writing from the University of Edinburgh and is a member of the Royal Society of Literature. Her body of work includes Oil at the Almeida Theater, the formal Daring the Writer, and the Berlin set thriller Anna at the National Theater. She is also a three-time MacDowell Fellow, and Newborn was jointly commissioned by Sonia Friedman Productions and Audible Theater. Sonia Friedman is, of course, a co-creator of the Together initiative alongside Hugh Jackman, which is what brought this whole season to Minetta Lane. The show will also be recorded and released on Audible at a later date, extending its reach well beyond the lucky few who get to see this in person. So, what makes Newborn particularly interesting in context is that Hickson was a 2025 Radcliffe Fellow at Harvard University, where her research focused on what she calls the new science of motherhood, specifically the neurological changes that occur in mothers before and after birth and how those changes alter a person's relationship to time itself. You can feel that research pulsing through these three monologues, even if the play doesn't advertise it overtly. So what is this about? Newborn is a collection of three monologues performed by three different actors. It runs just under 2 hours with no intermission. The first and the third monologues are set in present day or modern day. The second takes place in the period shortly after women gained the right to vote in a Western frontier town with a distinct Wild West flavor. On the surface, what ties them together is the presence in each piece of the words newborn or born new, often in relationship to a newborn life, human or otherwise. Whether the thematic threads that run deeper are intentional or just happy accidents, I'll leave that to someone who wants to really dive into that. The first monologue, performed by Sepideh Moafi, follows a modern woman in a long-term marriage with a 3-year-old son who is running her ragged. When an opportunity comes along to step outside the life she knows, in the form of an unlikely friendship and charged connection with a wildly famous international pop star, the question the piece asks is, will she or won't she? The second monologue, performed by Marianna Gailus, puts us in a Western town boarding house or saloon, and our narrator is a woman with little money who's caring for an ailing mother, but who has an enormous will and quiet strength in a time when women technically have the right to vote but are still treated as invisible, and she refuses to be. This one is violent and bloody and has real narrative stakes with a setup that earns its payoff. The third monologue is performed by Hugh Jackman. He plays an Australian tree surgeon who falls in love with a client. They marry, they struggle to conceive, they finally have a child, and then something shifts. He finds himself losing his connection to his wife. They drift, they separate, they find other people, and then an injury pulls everything back together. It's a long arc of a life told with extraordinary intimacy. So let's talk about positive negatives. I want to start with the acting because it's the reason to go. All three performances are excellent, but they're very different kinds of excellent. Sepideh Moafi in the first piece is committed and truthful, and she has the opportunity in this one to change her voice to give us the characters of the husband, her son, and the pop star who she meets. Shifting her voice and its register. It's very clear, it's very effective, and it helps the piece find its footing. And she's really great in this. Marianna Gailus is precise and technically impeccable. She reminds you of someone who's just come out of a very good training program. Everything is where it should be, nothing is sloppy, and when she plays the character of the cowboy who's courting her, she does so with a vocal distinction. Her eyes tend to look towards the audience in a slightly removed way, as if addressing the room at large, rather than connecting with individuals in it. And it's a slightly more formal relationship with the space, and I think it works for the period piece. Is she the most electric performer on stage? Maybe not, but she's young and well-trained, and I think she's going to find more nuance in her performing ability as she grows in her craft. And then there's Hugh Jackman, the reason for the season. You understand very quickly why this man is a superstar. His ability to connect with an audience is extraordinary. He looks at every part of the house. It doesn't matter where you're sitting. At some point, Hugh Jackman is going to make you feel like he is talking directly to you. He pulls you into his confidence in this completely unguarded, almost startling way. Now, the writing across all three is strong in a very specific way. Everything sounds very real. The dialogue doesn't sound like dialogue or like a monologue. It sounds like a way a person would actually talk and tell a story. It has those half-finished thoughts and detours and backtracks that make it feel very truthful. Jackman's monologue in particular is full of sentences that start and never quite end, and it feels completely authentic to how someone would actually tell you a story from their own life. Some critics have pointed out that this piece is actually a quietly radical exploration of male postpartum depression, the silent erosion of self that can happen to fathers after the birth of a child, something rarely, if ever, explored on stage. And I'll be honest, I didn't have that language when I was watching it, but knowing it now reframes the whole piece and makes it even more affecting in retrospect. Now, for the negatives, not many, but the first monologue is front-loaded with a lot of exposition, and it asks for a fair amount of the audience's patience before it arrives at where it's going and we really get into the narrative. At just under 2 hours with no intermission, the evening does start to feel long, and some critics have agreed that each piece could benefit from some pruning just to make the evening a little shorter. The whole adds up to less than the sum of its parts. My other frustration is the question of what really holds these stories together. By the end, I'd made peace with the idea that Ella Hickson had 3 extraordinary monologues and decided to put them together in the room, and that's fine. But the connective tissue Ian Rickson provides in the transitions by bringing the actors on together never quite convinces you that this is a unified work rather than a very strong anthology. And because the first and third pieces both circle around the erosion of romantic connections after having a child in a modern day setting, there's a slight redundancy you start to notice by the time you get to the third piece. So, was I bored? Honestly, a little, but that was just at the start. The exposition in the first monologue really started to worry me. Once I clocked that this was going to be separate monologues, I had a moment of anxiety and I thought, oh no, are we in for a long night? But the first piece found its stride. The second had me genuinely riveted from start to finish with great storytelling. And for the third, Hugh Jackman's performance was so captivating that boredom never had a chance. So was I confused? The biggest confusion was thematic. What is actually meant to hold these 3 pieces together? By the time we got to the third monologue, I had basically made peace with the fact that the answer might just be great writing and great actors and call it a day. There was also one brief moment during Jackman's piece where I was pulled out of the story. He's clearly older than the character at the beginning of his arc, who seems to be in his 30s when the story starts. And so at first I wasn't quite sure whether the woman he was meeting was meant to be close to his age now, or his age then, or if she was a younger woman. And it took a few beats before I understood he was telling a story that was happening 30 years ago. And it's a small thing and almost inherent to the conceit. You can't age Hugh Jackman backwards, although his hair is probably darker. He is a wonderful colorist. But that was a moment when I got briefly bumped out. So at the end of the day, Newborn is a showcase for three remarkable actors given meaty, well-written material to chew on. Is it a perfectly constructed, unified evening of theater? No. Could it be trimmed? Yes. But the pleasure of watching these three people do what they do, especially Jackman, is considerable. This is the kind of acting that reminds you why you fell in love with the theater. So why should you see this? If you love great acting in the room, looking at it, you can't look away acting, this show is for you. If you love strong, truthful monologue writing that sounds like real human beings actually talking, this show is for you. And if you're a Hugh Jackman fan, I don't know what you're waiting for. His performance alone is worth the price of admission, and I have never seen him do anything like this on stage. So where did I get my tickets and where did I sit? I was very fortunate to receive press tickets for this one, so a huge thank you to Audible, to Together, and to the Minetta Lane Theater for having me. I had a great seat on row G on the aisle in the orchestra, which meant I could look right down the aisle and see the whole stage without heads in front of me. But honestly, in this theater, my preference is actually the mezzanine. It has much better rake. So I really love what this initiative is doing. It's presenting serious, challenging work with world-class New York talent, with affordable access, and I want to support it the best that I can. So where do you get your cheap tickets? Well, that's what this initiative is about. 25% of every house is available at just $35. Day of only. You can grab them in person at the Minetta Lane box office or enter the digital lottery through Today Tix. Now this show runs through June 8th, so you got a little bit of time, but not a ton of it. So get on that lottery, go down to the box office before the show. I don't think the lines are huge. Grab yourself a $35 ticket and go check this out. Thank you for watching this video. The next show I will be doing is Heather Christian's Animal Wisdom, and I've known Heather Christian for a long time. I'm really excited to see one of her large, full works. And yeah, I can't wait to tell you all about it. All right, I'll see you at the next one.
Don't wanna drift away, wanna stay inside the play. Keep me engaged, keep me amused with what's in front of me, 'cause I don't wanna be bored and confused.